What's going on, YouTube? Today we are doing the most requested thing on the sheet of paper, the task list that you have given me, Intro to PvP series. Now there's actually quite a few things on this list, so I'm gonna have to get crack-a-lack in here and speed these videos up. Joking, obviously, but we're going to be talking today about the introduction to PvP. Now, my introduction to PvP is a bit different than others because I think the essential to getting into PvP, the essentials, are actually more so focused on the skills. Everyone seems to put this high emphasis on armor and mentality and other things, and I think, yes, that's great, and this is obviously going to be a couple video series, probably at least 3, but I'm thinking 3, a trilogy series. We've never gone wrong with those. Will be a great starting point, starting with skills, because once you have a decent chunk of skills, you can go into PvP wearing whatever. When I'm leveling up a character who's level 10 and I just want to do a daily battleground, I'm not thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I have to get someone to craft me 2 crafted sets. I have to get a monster set somehow. There's only a few monster sets that you can even get as a below level 50. Ugh. No, just slap on a couple skills and you're ready to go. Obviously, this will be going over quite a few skills and general things that I live by, but overall, the video is just going to be a very low bar to entry, how to get into PvP, start dueling with your friends, start doing battlegrounds. The next video is going to be focusing more on some sets, how they can synergize with certain abilities, but really the key piece and the key takeaway that you're going to be taking away from this video is once you have just a couple of skills, like you can start PvPing with friends in battlegrounds and even into Cyrodiil if you would so choose to. And that's what I hope you take away from this video. And we're going to be jumping on into all that and more. So, because the other day I was like, guys, we're real close to like 12,000 subscribers. It'd be so cool, if we could hit that goal. And you guys were just like, well, bam. Not only are you going to hit 12,000 that same day, you're going to be a fifth of the way towards 13,000 just a couple days later. So the support is absolutely phenomenal, especially as a console creator, to think that I can even compete with these other PC creators when it comes to subscribers, views, likes, and everything else is absolutely crazy. So thank you. This was the original phone I used to edit these videos on up until last December. So it's been a long journey, and I thank you guys for helping me on it. So let's jump into it. I already hear you guys clamoring. Where's the talking over the overlaid PvP footage? But we're actually not going to have that in this video. There will be a part of the series where we review combats and touch upon things that are happening and going on. But this is, this is the low bar to entry. This is just you and me. We're just talking. We're going to talk about how I set up my skill bars, how some people like to set up their skill bars, general tips, and generally what I need to get started into PvP. So when I'm making my level 10 during something like a Jubilee event, I think to myself, man, I really want some double XP. What do I make sure that I have on that skill bar? Obviously, the number one thing that I think is important is a heal, because you might not have one yet. But the actual easiest one to get is actually from the PvP line, which is actually quite comical if you think about it, because you're like, well, I would like to have vigor, please. If you need vigor, a very, very easy tactic, by the way, is you can go to Cyrodiil, do the actual 1 out of 1 main mission there. It's super fast. It's just a brief introduction, and then you'll be able to get to Alliance level 3. You'll unlock vigor, which will be helpful for you. So you actually can get that if you're on a stamina character. You might not have a heal. If you're a sorcerer, though, you probably have something like Twilight Matriarch, and there's quite a few Magicka heals. Magicka healers usually are pretty blessed, Magicka users, to get heals pretty early on. So what else do I look for? I look for an execute, because when you're going to something like Battlegrounds, being able to finish people off non-sexually is pretty essential, especially if you're in something like Deathmatch. You don't want to have kills stolen from you. Executes are just also good because it helps actually finish people off by doing more damage to people with lower health. That is generally the definition of an execute, and I think overall they're just great. But really, a heal, an execute, and then a spammable. What is a spammable? A spammable is something that you can use repeatedly without using up your entire resource bar. So crystal frags is what's referred to as a spammable, in my opinion. But other than that, we start to get in this little razzle dazzle. So what do I usually try to build in next? A stun. Stunning people is great because when they're stunned, they can't hit you. And generally, it's kind of like my football coach used to say. It was very simple. He who has the most points wins the game. But it's kind of reversed here. It's whoever's health is above 0% at the end of a fight is the winner. So it's a little bit reversed, and I hope that metaphor still rings true. But overall, that's really key. And when somebody's stunned, they're not able to hit you. Also, knockbacks I also think are just really cool, but not obviously essential. So you may notice the pattern begin here. I am actually a huge proponent of the front bar, DPS, back bar, defense. Why do I like that? And that's because of different weapon types. For example, blocking with an ice staff is going to use magicka to block versus stamina. So my little poor magicka character who has 15 total stamina, he gets to be able to block then using magicka. He also gets access to things like hardened ward. He can convert some of his stamina for health and magicka. He also gets a speed up. Now, speed ups are also essential in my opinion. If you're not a sorcerer or you're not a Nightblade who have access to easy speed ups, I suggest Race Against Time. It is a great one to get from the Psijic skill line. I also am a huge fan of Streak. Now, Streak used to basically be locked to sorcerers. High mobility used to give them extra mobility on the battlefield that gave you access to basically doing whatever you needed to go. If you wanted to get into a conflict, get out of a conflict, get access to a stun that cannot be blocked, this was the way to go. However, the vampires also get access to a really nice ability also. They get to basically do their little vampire streak as well, which is going to be very game-changing and is actually unfortunately why sorcerers have kind of fallen down the pecking order because they've lost that mobility that they had on a lot of other classes. Now, backbar ultimates, I like Temporal Guard. It's from the Psijic Order. You will have to level it up all the way. I apologize. But you can see while slotted, you gain minor protection. So you can see that I actually start to stack some buffs. I am not only going to have Major Resolve, Minor Expedition, but I'm going to also have Minor Protection on my back bar, which is already going to have bonus because I have the defending trait on my Ice Staff. So you can kind of see how these things start to stack up. And then when we get real crazy, we don't want to get whacked, we can pop a shield, and we'll have shields. We'll have speed ups. We'll have the ability to go fast and stun if we need to get into a situation, out of a situation. If we're running out of magicka, we can convert that magicka. We have access to go back in time if we want to feel like Tracer from Overwatch. But more importantly, it just gives us the ability to not die as quickly, which is essential in my opinion. Now, the front bar, a little bit crazy. This is where we can start stunning little silly gooses. We have access to a heal. Now, I am a huge fan of starting out into PvP on having a heal on both bars. I don't really have a choice as a sorcerer because I have to front bar and back bar matriarch, but I think that starting out, it's always good to have a heal, and I would button map it to the same place every time. Also, if you're like me and you struggle sometimes to hit your spammables, it can be good to have your spammable defense on your spammable offense bar. So say, for example, B is my spammable. It might be good to have Harden Ward as that B slot. I was doing that a lot when I was first starting out because I was terrible at keeping Harden Ward procced, but it only lasts 6 seconds. But you can see 21,000 shield for 6 seconds. So you're going to want to make full effect of that. For only 3,000 magicka, you're basically getting access to a whole new health bar. So being able to keep those defensive buffs up is very essential. And then we have what I call the burst combo. Now, this will obviously be relative to whichever class you're using, and I will also be going into a bit of reviews from some other people's like guides and things on some classes they use, because obviously I'm a sorcerer. You might not be a sorcerer. But the general key of PvPing is bursting people down. And there's some easy ways to do that. Generally, if you're a sorcerer, you can use Haunting Curse, stack that with Mage's Fury, and then try to use procced Crystal Frags. Another interesting combo you can try to do too is Ice Comet them and then stun them so they're unable to block it, so that they're going to take the entirety of the 19,000 damage as well as the dot that goes with it. You can also do this with Dawnbreaker also, and you can have Haunting Curse on them as well as Mage's Fury, and you can keep Crystal Fragging them. It's a very simplistic rotation. You can kind of do it as you need to. Some people prefer as opposed to using Flame Clench. They're a huge fan of actually using Streak as the stun. You can certainly do that. I've done it before. It's okay. It does give you access to another slot though, which I always think is pretty essential when you're using something like a sorcerer. But you can see that my sets also are wrapped up into kind of my front bar, back bar. You can see that we have sharpened on the front bar. That's when we hit them with the old razzle dazzle. And then on the back bar, that's when we use our escapist poisons. And we'll talk about potions, poisons, and everything in the third video. But you can see that we have defending. So we have offense, defense. I think it's a great suggestion. If you're getting into it, you could have a dual wield front bar, sword and shield back bar. You could have a two-hander front bar, ice staff back bar. Whatever you want to do, I think it's just an easy, simplistic way to do it. If you do not like bar swapping, you should definitely watch my video on my greatest ESO tip, because I actually have mine bar swapped to my right thumbstick, which makes bar swapping significantly easier, because I'm not a fan of having to use the, just press this D-pad while in combat. I think it's terrible. And if you play on PC, because I know some of you little silly gooses do, I would suggest mapping it to your mouse if your mouse has an additional button, because I think the easier you get at bar swapping, the faster you can do it, the better you will be overall. He has joined me here in the little top corner here. So let us talk about just reviewing some what other people said. So this is from Deltius Gaming, obviously an amazing resource for all things ESO. You can actually take what I just told you. See, he's got his stun here, dizzying swing. He's got his execute. He's got his Dawnbreaker, which is very similar to Meteor. Also another great option. But let's also look what he's got. He's got a speed up. So he's got the ability to go faster. He's got the ability to give himself a little bit of some bufferoonies. And he's got the ability. So this is the Beetles is kind of like the Warden's version of the Daedric Curse. It's kind of something that you just put a little razzle dazzle. You hit him with the left hook and then the right hook and then the right hook again. That's how you do it. But look at his back bar. You can see that this is the please don't die, please don't die, please don't die. Here's minor protection. Here is the heal myself and others. Here is the give yourself some more buffs that help you live. Here's the heal yourself. Here's the give me some health please and health over time. And here is the give me a lot of health and to my allies as well. So you can see that this general trend kind of rings true for a lot of builds, with some exceptions that I'll also go into here in a minute on other builds, because I commonly get asked very frequently, Jake, how do you build a necromancer? Jake, how do you build, yada yada. And unfortunately, I don't play a lot of other classes. So what I'm trying to show here too is that even though I don't really play a stamina warden or a mag warden, you can still go in and see this general trend of like what I'm saying of, stuns, speed ups, heals, executes, etc. is a pretty true statement across a lot of builds. So next we actually have an Outcast Templar. So the reason I'm kind of pinballing between different creators and different class types is I want to kind of show you that there's this general trend. You can see this is the back bar. Well, this is the please don't die back bar. It's got cleanses, it's got heals, it's got, passive major protections on there. It's got a lot of things. It's got your speed. But then on your front bar, he's got his procced ability to, deal a lot of damage. He's got a good spammable. He's got a skill that you can just leave on there where it doesn't even have to do anything except just be on the skill bar. And he's got the ability to do a lot of damage. A notable thing that I would say is missing is while he does have a stun, he does have amazing burst and a good spammable on here. He is not using an execute, which is totally fine. You certainly don't need to. The next build that I'll be showing you actually also does not have an execute. But what I would say is that generally when you're getting into PvP, especially doing battlegrounds, especially because battlegrounds, who actually gets the kill is much more important, especially if you're doing something like deathmatch. I generally encourage you guys to use executes, but if you're putting out this much damage output, you can certainly get around that by just, finishing them off traditionally. Next, we have another build. This one's from Dots Gaming, because again, I'm trying to pinball and show, just the general trends among all creators. You can see the same kind of thing, though. We're talking about the back bar is the let's not die here, please. He actually uses the same ultimate that I use. He uses Race Against Time. That is, like I was saying, a really good speed up. It also gives you access to a lot of really good things. He has access to heals as well as buffs. He does put ingenious weapons on the back bar, which can be really good. I would say, though, that you're really going to have to make sure you don't have a lot of input lag. But you'll notice, though, that there is no execute. Although what I would say is that Dragon Knights have such crazy burst and the ability to control opponents with things like Chains of Devastation. They can pretty much ultimate every 33 seconds, it feels like. They don't necessarily need it, but it is something to keep in mind that this also does not run one. But you can see here he's using things, for example, that are applying major breach, weakening those enemies that he's able to do more damage to them as well. Next, we have a quick Nightblade build from Dots Gaming. Just even want to show, even with the Nightblade, who's known for their little stealthiness, you can see the same concept rings true. They have a back bar of, let me get out of here, I'm in too deep, and a front bar of, I'm going to deal as much damage as possible. They've got executes, they've got the ability to deal more damage, they've got a really good burst. You can see even with Nightblades, which generally are considered, in my opinion, something that is very different than how you would build the normal PvP character, you still see the skills kind of ring true. And why I'm going to kind of hit upon this so hard is that regardless of what you're playing, the fundamentals of skills are fairly similar. And I always think that people always think that it's the sets that are the most important piece of anything. And truthfully, I think that skills are way more important. For example, I sometimes will switch my sorcerer skills around way before I'll consider switching sets. But if you're brand new to PvP, your first instinct might be, oh, I need to try a new set. This just isn't working. When in reality, it's probably just the skills that you're using, even if it's just the uptimes on them or your play style specifically. You might not be utilizing those skills properly, or you might have a better optimized skill layout that would be much better for you. For example, I used to completely suck when I was trying to make one bar builds, before the Oaken Soul even existed, because I just could not bar swap effectively. So I was like pigeonholing myself to these PvP builds that was like half the front bar, the only bar was trying to keep me alive, and the other half was trying to do all this damage. And really, it just did neither. So that's why it can be essential to not only get good at bar swapping, but also utilizing all your skills, whether it's buffs for offense, defense, whether it's speed to give yourself more mobility around the battlefield, whether it's a stun to keep people from attacking you, because that's always pretty great, whether it's an execute to finish people off. Those are also essential, whether it's a good spammable to make sure that you're not just sitting there light attacking and heavy attacking, which can truthfully also be helpful. But I always find too that spammables can also be a great way to weave your other abilities with them. Example for my sorcerer is Crystal Frags, is you also will get a free proc occasionally too while you're doing and weaving. The beetles is another good example for Warden. Even though necessarily you're not going to beetle before it's gone off again, you pretty much always want to have the beetles ready to launch on somebody as another good example for you. And ladies and gentlemen, it's going to wrap up the old video. So again, we talked about skills today because I think skills are the first point that not only are the most essential thing that if you're a current PvP player that you might want to tweak, learn to kind of weave a little bit better, or kind of that's going to be your main focus for improving as a PvP player. But it's also just as important as a new player getting into PvP. If you are, for example, wanting to use a skill line that you don't have fully leveled up, well, you might want to start considering leveling up those lines before you get in, but don't think that the bar to entry is very high. Like I was saying, it's really as simple as those fundamentals, especially for 10 to 50 battlegrounds, which I cannot suggest enough. Not only are you going to be in a small microcosm of a 4v4v4, you're also going to get access to no champion points, and you're going to be going against other players who are really generally just looking to get an extra experience, especially during the Jubilee event. It gives you a nice microcosm to see how your skills work together without having to duel constantly over and over again, because duels unfortunately are lopsided and most people will have their champion points put in, which you may not have a lot of depending on your current situation and if you're on a new character. It's also a great suggestion too, even if you're leveling up characters that you plan to make as a tank, take them through 10 to 50 battlegrounds. You get a free attribute and skill reset at the end anyway. See how they work together. That way when you fight Templars down the road, these are the mechanics that they use. I cannot suggest enough playing on different types of characters, mag, stam, different classes, etc. You really start to see those patterns. We'll talk about more of that in the third part, where we kind of take the gear load out, which will be the next part, like what gear is easy to use, what potions are good, and spoilers, pretty much nothing that you're going to need is going to be super crazy. You're not going to have to farm any hard trials or anything crazy. Most PvP gear that you will want is essentially overland or craftable, with some dungeon sets kind of intermixed in between that combination. So please don't think that I'm going to make the bar to entry as high as possible on the next video. I want to keep this as low to the ground as possible, because I want to encourage you guys as much as I can before mid-year mayhem. You take a chance, get into that PvP rhythm, and if you play on Xbox, reach out to me. I'll do what I can to help you. But as a quick kind of reminder before I fully wrap up the video, we're still doing the giveaway drawing. We have 3 winners from last month. The next winners will be pulled at the 1st of next month, which will be May 1st, which means I will pull 1 random comment. Every comment that is not flagged as spam is entered equally. The second comment is just my favorite comment of the month. It could be nice, it can be sweet, it could be funny, it can be stupid, it could be whatever. Truthfully, I can't tell you what mood I'll be in, and what I would enjoy comment wise. And then the third one is just going to be a random subscriber. So by being subscribed, all you lovely jubblies that helped me even get to 12,000 and that are propelling me forward to 13,000, you guys are all equally entered. So thank you guys so much again. Let me know what you thought of the video. If you guys have any suggestions for more skills or loadouts or things like that, let me know in the comments below, and I will respond to pretty much every comment that has a question on it. So I'll see you guys there. Bye, guys.
Remember to like and subscribe to Jake Clips. Or you should. I might have to pluck your eyes if you don't. Or, better yet, I'll skip rope with your entrails. Do it now. Subscribe. Ta-ta. Off with you.
Just a quick post outro here, super fast. Do you guys think 3 parts is good? You think maybe a 4th part? Do you guys like the length on these videos? You think I should chop it up a little bit more? Totally up to, ideas and things for this, because this is a longer video. I generally like my stuff to be a little bit more concise. But obviously when you're talking about skill loadouts and across the whole classes of ESO, it can be a little bit daunting. So let me know what you guys thought, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.